How you doing? I'm Matt DeBoe, and this is Dr. Rich Massey. Thanks, Rich, for coming out and letting me talk
good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And we're going to talk about ultraviolet blood treatment, also known as UBI, ultraviolet blood irradiation. Now, I'm going to talk to Rich about kind of how did you get into this technology? What was your experience with it?
Oh my goodness. So I started out as a medic in the Air Force in '74.
Mm-hmm.
Went to pharmacy school, went to medical school,
All right.
went to anesthesia training.
All right.
And when I was getting ready to shift out of anesthesia, I went to a class at Charles Farr's place, and he was a Nobel Prize nominee for working with hydrogen peroxide IVs. And I got pneumonia while I was at his seminar, and it was a
Wow.
three-day seminar, and I got really sick. And so they said, why don't we just demonstrate the ultraviolet light machine on this sick doctor here, you know? And I was all in the back, socially distanced, you know, and but they all came around and plugged in this IV. And when I started feeling better, which was just in a few minutes,
Wow.
I noticed the looks on everybody's faces. All these doctors looking at me like, what happened? And they said, you just went from gray to pink. And in 9 minutes, I went from having pneumonia to feeling like I had a cold. Now, I had had pneumonia before, and it took 30 days of antibiotics to feel that good. So one of the first things I bought when I opened my own clinic was that little Umatron machine that uses these same two little light bulbs that you use to sterilize water.
Really?
Yeah, that one's a UVA and one's a UVC.
All right.
You can buy these at the light bulb store.
Really?
Now, being a doctor who doesn't have much mechanical skill, I had to buy the machine. But a person could make something in their garage
No kidding.
that all you need is a quartz segment on your IV tubing to go between these two lights and then put the blood
Like
back
a
in your
quartz
body.
tube, like a just clear glass tube between
Yes.
these two.
Yeah, and,
That's
it's like this is from a fancier thing.
okay.
But this is
So
the
something
quartz
kinda like
segment.
this,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Only much smaller.
Now
This-
remember, don't try this at home.
Right. This is Gene Barnett's fancy machine here that has
Which-
the 3 quartz segments.
Okay.
I just had a little one with one tiny quartz segment hooked up to an IV.
Now, what if somebody was just put the quartz glass in the sunlight and just ran their blood through sunlight? Could that work?
I don't know, you're the thinker here. All I'm telling you is that I was a doctor and my cousin was paralyzed from polio. When I heard that all the kids who were still conscious, who were treated with this, recovered from polio with no paralysis and no death, I was very upset at what my education had omitted.
Wow.
This actually began at Johns Hopkins in the Mayo Clinic in the 1930s.
Yeah, was
Okay.
that not in my league?
It's been, yes, and it's been around a long time.
So this technology
Yeah.
has been out there for years, and these guys proved it between the 30s and the 40s. And I think what I read is with the invention of antibiotics, they decided, well, we've got the cure for everything, we don't need this technology.
Right.
So it got forgotten about until, what, recently, until the 70s, or, yeah, because that was about the 70s when you...
So I would just encourage people, it's my go-to memory when I hear something like there's a virus going around, to realize I've got a 10 to 30 minute procedure that has reversed every virus syndrome I've seen in 20 years.
Wow.
Right?
That is
I mean, I haven't
amazing.
seen any of them not reversed.
That is amazing. So what do you think UBI's best use is? I mean, viral situations?
So I actually met a guy who was on an Olympic baseball team for his country. They did a UBI before every game
No kidding.
because it made their reflexes faster. It causes your blood to release more oxygen into your muscles. So you can totally do it as a health enhancement. You don't have to wait till you're sick.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So kind of explain the process. What are the steps that somebody takes?
I could train a well-motivated 8th grader to do this for their entire neighborhood. It would cost you $100 to build the box and get the bulbs.
But it is invasive. We're talking about putting a needle in.
You'd need somebody who could just
Who's a
poke a needle in a
phlebotomist.
vein,
A phlebotomist
and that's it. That's
Yeah.
all you need.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's exposing 50 to 200 cc's of your blood to ultraviolet light and putting it back into your body. And that's it.
Wow. So it's like what, 1/16 of somebody's blood? That's what I've read.
It's a fraction of it. Doesn't need to be much, and it just gives off all this light inside the body. And as you know, whether you read the Bible or read science, everything's made of light.
That's right. That's right. I'm a big fan of light. As you know, I've written a book on light.
Yeah.
So are there counterindications when it comes to this therapy? Things that could affect people in a negative or hurtful way?
So I've heard of contraindications, and most of them are to protect people from legal issues. I don't think there are any medical contraindications. So I had a friend who was an ER doctor who was really sick with appendicitis.
Mm-hmm.
He came to my house and said, I've got a high fever and I'm tender at McBurney's point. Now, only ER doctors and people know that kind of
So he was
terminology.
an MD himself.
He knew.
Okay.
And I said, well, we're going to the hospital. He said, I don't want the surgery. I'd rather die in your house. Would you do the ultraviolet? Because I heard it reverses it. So I was like scared because I'd heard, you know, that if you have an infected gallbladder or appendix, you don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably for legal reasons because we did an ultraviolet and he's fine.
Wow. Well, so tell me, so
Yeah.
and how much time, what happened? So he
Yeah,
treated
we did an ultraviolet. He, you know, it took him
Just
through the
one
night
treatment.
to get his fever down. The next day he was fine, but we did a second one just to,
Oh, okay.
you know, send him on his way.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, are there any cases you feel UBI should not be used at all?
You know, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. The main thing I wanted to say is in this environment where people are afraid of some virus, to realize that if a media source is not letting you know there's a half-hour reversal of every known viral syndrome, then they're not reporting the full news.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a friend of mine, David Drapella. So, a friend of mine flies, he comes from Asia on a jet a couple months ago, and when he gets home, he is full of phlegm in his lungs, he's got a fever, he feels horrible, and he goes to call his regular doctor that he uses. But David's doctor was out of town. So then he called Rich, and Rich said, well, come on over, let's see what we can do. And you elected to give him the ultraviolet blood irradiation treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't have a television. I don't watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never heard of coronavirus. So when he came from China, I didn't think anything of it. Just
Asia, yeah.
friend with a cough and a fever. Let's just put some light in his body and see what happens.
And so the report from David was that I heard directly from him. He said later that evening he started feeling better, and the next day he was on the mend.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit more. So we did how many minute treatment did you do?
Oh gosh, it wasn't that. We just did the one. We just did the one
Like a
treatment.
40 minutes, 20 minutes.
Maybe 100, 150 cc's of blood was about it.
But you did a second thing. So his lungs were filled with fluid, and he was coughing and hacking. And his doctor has basically confirmed that he had the virus. His doctor confirmed that later. I don't know if you've talked to him since.
Okay.
And so basically, tell what else you put on his chest. So light heals people in many, many ways,
Right.
not just with this. Red and infrared light are known to rejuvenate cells and get the mitochondria kicked back up into high gear, activating collagen, elastin, ATP, all these things
Sure.
happen at a cellular level. So David said that you also, while you were giving him this UV blood treatment, you also put red lights on his chest.
We did.
So you want
We
to talk
did.
about the red lights?
All I know is our friend Gene gave us both devices, the one for the IV and the one for the lights on the skin. They both work really well. Most of us are short on red light unless we've been waking up at sunrise and sitting in the first hour of sunlight every morning. We're low on red light and we're high on blue light because we have lots of TVs and cell phones and computers.
So is it a red infrared or is it just red?
You know what? You would have to ask Gene about
Okay,
that.
well,
I could show you the
interviewing.
pads and yeah.
We're going to interview Gene, so yeah, when we show the device, we'll show the pad. Okay.
I'm just the guy who tells you that it works and that I've seen people for 20 years.
Well, you're more than that.
You know.
You're the guy who treats the people. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're going to cut this segment for now, and then we're going to come back in a few minutes to anybody that might be interested in watching. What we're going to do here is we're going to show an ultraviolet blood treatment in action here in the next few minutes. So stay tuned, come back in, and you can also find these video clips on MatthewDebeau.com, my Facebook, Matt Debeau, and also YouTube. So keep your eyes open and your mind wide because this is great stuff. Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome.